In this movie, we will see four brothers who were reborn genetically inside the sewage system in New York City. They were named TMNT, who were the masters of the Renaissance, and they trained to become ninja warriors. But what will stand in their way, and what will they do with their ninja combat training? All this and more we will see in the TMNT movie. The story of the movie begins in Central America, and we see a group of thieves attacking a village. The leader of the thieves pushes the girl and steals her necklace. Then they get into their car and leave the village. While they are on their way, the driver suddenly stops, so the leader of the thieves asks him and says, "Why did you stop?" He replies, "There is a big tree blocking the road." The driver gets out to move the tree, but he falls to the ground. Then the second one gets out, and suddenly he is pulled up by a rope. The third one here gets scared and runs away, and the leader of the thieves remains alone. He gets scared and keeps running until one of the Ninja Turtles appears, who manages to kill him and finish him off. The next morning, all the stolen items return to the village without anyone knowing who returned them. One of the girls in the village, who is a student in archaeology, decides to search for the archaeological piece that is in the forest. She goes towards the forest and starts searching while carrying a sword with her, and suddenly, while she is walking, she falls into an underground hole, but she is saved by one of the Ninja Turtles whose name is Leo. At night, Leo asks the girl why she came to the forest, so she tells him, "I work in the field of searching for old archaeological pieces." Now we get to know the second one of the turtles, whose name is Do. Do works in the field of computers and communications. As for the third, his name was Mikey, who works as an organizer for children's birthday parties. The fourth one is named Raph, and Raph sleeps during the day and works as a guard at night to protect the entire city. On the same day at night, there was a robbery happening on one of America's streets, so Raph goes there and attacks the thieves while he is disguised. He beats them all, but one of them escapes, and here Raph keeps chasing him. At this time, the police arrive and think that Leo is the one who carried out the mission. The girl asks him why he left his brothers and why he came to America, so he tells her, "I came to prove myself and become like them and not remain a failure." Now we see Mikey, who is returning to their house, which is located underground, and he turns on the television. Then Do comes and they have a conversation and start arguing, and one of them tells the other, "You are a failure." Here their master hears them, and he comes and tells them that each one of them has strengths and weaknesses. After that, we see the same girl, who is an archaeology researcher, and her name is O'Neill. She was on the ship carrying cargo, so she calls her friend whose name is Casey and says to him, "I am on the ship, and I have a very valuable statue, and you can help me." He refuses at first, but then agrees and says to her, "I will cover the distance and arrive." Here they take the statue and go to the museum to sell it. While they are walking in the museum, Casey drops an artifact and breaks it. The alarm bell starts ringing and the museum doors close. After that, they meet the head of the museum, whose name is Winters. O'Neill asks him to show her the statue of General Yaharo, which is a very valuable artifact. He tells her, "Maybe you see these statues as just stones, but I consider them family to me." Now we see a person who is trying to rob a store, and a disguised person attacks him and drags him up to the roof of the building. Here Casey appears and realizes that this disguised person is Raph. He calls him by his name, and Raph says to him, "How did you recognize me?" Casey says to him, "You clearly look like a turtle." Here Casey decides to join him, help him, and become a night guard with him. In this scene, we see Leo returning to New York. He goes to their house and enters to see their master and asks him to forgive him because he left them and lived away from them. But we know that during this time he was training. Here the master forgives him and says to him, "You are a hero." Leo agrees and hugs the master, and suddenly while they are standing, Raph comes and says to Leo, "Welcome back." After that, Leo goes and greets his brothers Do and Mikey, and they were happy for his return, unlike Raph. At night, they all go out and were training and climbing the buildings, but suddenly they hear a strange sound coming from one of the abandoned buildings. They go and see a group of people fighting with a giant monster, so they decide to intervene. Here, when the people see them, they immediately run away, and one of the turtles chases the leader of the group to find out who they work for, but he fails to know. So he goes back and helps his brothers, and they keep fighting the monster until they hear the sound of the police, so they escape and enter a sewage manhole. The next morning, the Ninja Turtles were gathered at breakfast, and their master comes and tells them, "I am proud of you because I saw you four gathered together again." After that, he goes and sits down, and they turn on the TV and watch the news talking about the abandoned building incident and the monster. He starts to doubt them, so he gathers the four of them and says to Leo, "You are the oldest of your brothers, and I forgave you. and you came back so that you can settle together away from problems and give up fighting evil and evildoers. But Raph says to him, but we must know who these people work for. So he leaves them and goes out. Now we see a group of masked people attacking a warehouse, and there is a strange creature they are trying to kill, and indeed after a long struggle, they tie it with a chain and take it. At this time, Raph went to Casey's house and talked to him from the window and asked him to come with him to the rooftop without O'Neill seeing them. Casey agrees and climbs out through the window, and after they go up, Raph says to him, there is something that worries me more than the criminals. Casey says to him, what is it? Then a creature that looks like a bat flies by them. Raph says to him, this. They start chasing it, and they start jumping over the rooftops hoping they can catch it, but unfortunately, it gets away from them, so they stop. But suddenly, the creature comes towards them, and it is tied with a rope, and a group of masked people, who are the same ones who attacked the monster in the warehouse, are pulling this creature down to the ground. Raph and Casey were watching them from above, but Casey, without noticing, drops a stone on them. They see them and start firing live bullets at them, so Raph and Casey run away, but one of the statues climbs after them and starts chasing them. Here, Raph and Casey hide in a room and lock the door, but the statue sees them and tries to break the door. Suddenly, the police arrive, so the statue gets scared and escapes. Here, Raph faints, and O'Neill calls the Ninja Turtles and tells them, Raph has lost consciousness, come quickly, and indeed they go. In the meantime, O'Neill welcomes Leo, and Leo goes to Raph and pulls out a piece from his shell and tells them, this is a volcanic stone. Here, Leo regains consciousness, and they start analyzing the shape of the stone and expect that it is from South America. O'Neill takes the stone from them and tells them that this stone belongs to the legend of Yaharo. So they ask her about the story of the legend, and she tells them that 3,000 years ago, a warrior found an entrance, and when he opened this entrance and entered it, he gained an energy that granted him eternal life. But this energy turned all his soldiers into statues. Raph takes it and sees that the name Winners is written on it, so he decides that they should go to Winners. But Leo stops him and says to him, I do not want to disobey the master's orders because he forbade us from problems and fighting. But Raph insists and leaves them and goes because he was determined to go to him. Now we see Winters talking to a masked person, and we know that this person is Yaharo, and Winters is helping him to free his soldiers and bring them back to life after they became stone. At this time, Leo and O'Neill were planning an idea to stop Winters from what he is doing because these petrified statues, if they return to life, they will destroy humanity. After that, we see Leo watching one of the masked people and sees him coming out of the restaurant, so he chases him immediately. Here, the masked person sees him and runs away, and Leo keeps chasing him until this person reaches a very high place, and he cannot jump from it, so he stops quickly. Leo says to him, you will not be able to rule the world. Here, the masked person attacks him and tries to hit him, but Leo blocks the strike, and they keep fighting until Leo hits the masked person and the mask he is wearing falls off. He is shocked when he finds out that this person is Raph. He says to him, why are you risking our family's safety and doing this? Raph replies to him, don't exaggerate because I am not a kid and it's none of your business. You left us and went away. Why did you come back now? Leo says to him, why don't you love me? I left to train and work on myself more and become stronger. Raph says to him, you are my big brother, but I don't agree with everything you say. Here he takes out his weapon, and Leo also takes out his weapons, and they start fighting each other and continue fighting, and there is a strong and fierce confrontation between them. Here, Raph knocks Leo to the ground and puts his sword on his neck, but suddenly gets up, withdraws, and leaves Leo and goes away. As soon as Raph leaves, Yaharo and his soldiers attack Leo and hit him with an arrow, so Leo falls to the ground and screams loudly. Raph hears his voice and runs back to him and sees them taking him, and he keeps chasing them but unfortunately loses them. After that, Raph returns home and tells the master everything that happened and says to him, now I know why you preferred Leo over me because he listens and is not reckless like me. I was the one who made the mistake, and because of me, they took Leo. The master says to him, the time for hiding is over, and we must go back. At this time, Winters, the soldiers, and Yaharo were all gathered together. Winters was able to open the energy portal that Yaharo had opened 3,000 years ago. But suddenly, Yaharo and his soldiers turned against Winters and told him, your part is over. Winters said to him, immortality is a curse, and you have lived long enough. Yaharo replied to him, it's you whose time is ended, and now it's my turn. At the same time, O'Neill, Casey, the master, and the rest of the turtles were outside the museum, fighting Yaharo's soldiers to rescue Leo from their grip. Here, They enter the museum through the main door and close it behind them, and they start looking for Leo. Raph was able to find him in one of the capsules and gets him out and apologizes to him. Suddenly, they hear Winter shouting, so they quickly go up and see Winter's lying on the ground. They start moving him, and suddenly he regains consciousness, sits up, and tells them everything that happened with him. He says to them, "It's time for me to stop this curse and return all these monsters and statues to their original place." Meanwhile, Yahoro was planning to destroy the world and destroy the Ninja Turtles, and a group called the Tribe joined the Ninja Turtles. So they made a plan and started looking for the 13th monster so they could close the energy portal and erase the immortality curse so that Yahoro would die since he had lived for 3,000 years. They began executing the plan and gathered the monsters and fought with them. Raph was able to throw General Yahoro into the energy portal. At this time, Casey and O'Neill were searching for the 13th monster. Now we return to the Turtles and the Master, who managed to throw as many as possible into the energy portal, but suddenly they all came back and came out again. Yahoro says to them, "You fools, we are immortal beings, and we are made of stone." But while they were talking, O'Neill and Casey entered, and the 13th monster was chasing them. The monster came out immediately and fell along with all the statues inside the energy portal. Here, the portal closed and the immortality curse was erased, and everything returned to normal. At this moment, the Turtles thanked O'Neill and Casey because they helped them. As for Winters, he returned to his country, and the Ninja Turtles were able to achieve justice and defeat the tyrant who was planning to destroy humanity. And here is where the movie ends.